In the studio, I have Tanya Unkovich, life coach, with me. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, we thought we should do sort of an Anzac Day themed show. Well, not themed really so much, just taking moments to reflect and remember those that have gone before us. And I think there's a lot of cases where we don't pay enough attention to our elders, do we, or what they've gone through in our lives. And we really need to reflect on that and use it to our advantage as well.
Absolutely. There is so much history there and so much knowledge. It's very easy for us to forget and not respect their views, isn't it? Whereas they've lived through so much and we can learn so much from just sitting with an elder person.
And you need to do this because if they pass on before you've got the information, you can't pass it on to your children as well.
That's right. And that's why it's actually quite good to sit and even video them or tape them and listen and hear their stories. Because when they are gone, you're right, it'll be forgotten, it'll be gone. So
and do it when the stories are still clear in their head too.
Absolutely. Mind you, sometimes they can remember all those ones, but not what happened yesterday, right?
So, yeah, well, that actually sounds like me. It's like you don't ask me about things that went on because I couldn't tell you a lot of things right now. So what can we learn then from our elders?
Resilience. How to actually cope with adversity, because we often forget that they've been through world wars. They've been through hunger. They've been through adversity that some of us would never even know. And they are still here. And they're still here to tell the story. They're still here to be able to proudly say, yes, I learnt all these lessons from my parents. You know, so often it's easy for us to blame what's going on in our lives. But one thing I do notice is that our parents still tend to have that respect for their parents, for their elders, because they still really respect what they went through all those years ago.
It's interesting, isn't it? As you're growing up, you go through a phase where you listen to your parents because they know everything when you're a child. Hit your teens, excuse me, and you're like, oh, you know nothing. I know everything. I'm 17. And then it's probably sometime in your 20s again when you go, wow, actually, Mum and Dad, they have lived a life and they know some things.
And I'm finding that now in my 50s as I'm watching my parents who are very old and getting towards the end of their life. I have huge respect. And I just hear these little things coming out, these pearls of wisdom. I'll never forget one day my mother saying to me, Tanya, you have got to make yourself happy. And I nearly rolled over and laughed because I'm thinking, here's this woman brought up in communist Yugoslavia and here's me doing all the studies and she got it in one line.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think we expect the world to make us happy a lot of the time and we don't take control of our own lives.
There's that saying, if you don't go within, then you risk going without. You know, going within and digging deep for that resilience, that's in all of us because we see that our parents had it. They're humans just like us, but they knew that they had no option but to dig deep and go, gosh, I've got to get through this. I've got to get through this hunger. I've got to feed my family. Yet we have this tendency sometimes to go, oh, poor me. You know, and how am I going to do this? And start looking around us for quick solutions instead of going, I've got to dig deep and go within because everything I need is within me.
So how do we do that? How do we manage or build that resilience?
Well, know that you can. Make the decision that you can and make the decision that you will instead of, I'll try. Have that certainty in yourself. And, building that muscle of resilience, that emotional intelligence, that emotional resilience is no different to building physical resilience. It's no different to pumping up your biceps. You need to do it every day. You need to condition your thinking, your beliefs, those daily patterns. It's about doing it daily because if we don't wash for 3 or 4 days, things don't smell too good, right? So the same with our mind. If we don't condition our mind, if we don't continually feed it good stuff, then we'll tend to go to that negative stuff.
What about helping your children? Quite often with young teens, they can get into a way where they just blame everybody else for things. Like they cannot take responsibility for something that's like, oh, it's their fault or it's my brother's fault or they can't take it. How do you teach them to stop blaming everybody else in the world for their problems or what's going on, and just actually accept responsibility?
That's a good question.
Asking for a friend.
I was going to say, just sit down and write it out for a few years. You know, there's always the way to positively reinforce a behaviour, isn't there? And just maybe ask them good quality questions to get them thinking, instead of telling them, just saying, well, what about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about if you do that? It's always about building belief in other people, letting them see that actually I've got control of myself. I don't need to keep getting out there, and letting them know that they're enough. Quite often we blame others because we don't feel good about ourselves. So if you can reinforce that they are enough, even though they've made a mistake, then perhaps that's one way to do it.
It's interesting that you're talking about the blaming others. That seems like a real 21st century kind of a thing with social media and the comments sections. I'm just thinking of the comment sections on any story, even some of the texts we get here. That's that real urge to blame others or to abuse others, isn't it?
Oh, very much so, because the thing we don't want to do is look in the mirror and look at ourselves. The more we can project all that stuff onto other people, the less we feel ourselves. And it's always that feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable enough. Those are those basic feelings, right? And we don't want to feel that. We'll do anything to get away from that. So projecting onto others, you know that saying, when you point your finger at someone, there's three pointing back at you, right? So it is about taking ownership. It is about taking responsibility for your own life and what comes out of your mouth.
And also, maybe don't go on social media all the time. Take little breaks every now and again, so you don't need to see, everybody's perfect life, which we know is not real.
I know. And, our parents didn't have social media. They had to build that resilience without all of that external stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. We didn't have it until, we were in our
10, 15
adulthood.
Years ago. I know. And, what did we used to do then in order to feel good about ourselves?
Hang out down the dairy and
absolutely
buy K-bars and watch
and
boys. I was just trying to
move our bodies. We used to get on our bikes and move, right? But we're all sitting around now.
Yeah, my 3-speed cruiser. Hey, thank you so much for your time this morning, Tanya.
You are so welcome.
And thank you for bringing in my morning tea treat as well. Life coach Tanya Unkovich with the good intel about how we can live better lives and be resilient as well.